This is Damian Macy, the Friends of the Marshall Public Library with our Oral History Project. Today is Monday, July the 6th, and I'm visiting at the lovely home of Judy McConchie at 110 Linden Street in Marshall. And with that, I'll introduce you to Judy, and we'll let her tell about her past.
Hi, I'm Judy, and I'll be happy to say a few things about my past. I was born in Marshall, actually in Terre Haute, Indiana, but I was living in Marshall, or my folks were living in Marshall, on December 4th, 1939. Now, I will probably say often we because I had a twin sister. I was born first, but my twin sister Linda was born about 15 minutes later. So until we separated, after we graduated college, we were pretty much we's. We were together an awful lot. And we enjoy each other, and we still can actually buy the same things. We bought the same cards for my mother sometimes for her Mother's Day. So we're still very close, even though she lives in New Jersey now, and I still live in Marshall.
Did you dress alike?
We dressed alike for a while. Actually, Mother made a lot of our clothes. And so we dressed alike until, I would say, maybe junior high. And at junior high, Mother was very adamant that we should have different classes, that we should go our separate ways, and it was wonderful. So we were in different classes in junior high. Of course, in grade school, we went to North School, and so we about had to be in the same class. But in junior high, we were in different classes, and it was fun because after school, we would get together and we'd kind of go in the bathroom and talk so Mother couldn't hear. We could talk about our day time. Not that we did anything, but you don't always want your folks listening in. So
did you have fun purposely impersonating each other or something?
Honestly, we did not.
You really didn't?
We did not. We did
I've
not.
always wondered that about twins.
We never did that. Now, I do remember, this was actually in college, and Linda was going out one night, and I just happened to be going down the stairs of our house, and this fellow was coming up, and he looked at me, and I think he was going to follow me down, but I said, no, this is the wrong person. You don't want me.
That's neat.
Yeah, but I will say, too, that in my family, we had a sister, a younger sister, and she was born in 1944, so she was about 5 years younger. And unfortunately, I think for her, at that time, twins were a little bit unusual. And so when we were out, they'd always say, oh, how are the twins? And I thought Karen got left out, and I think Mother felt that too, so she'd always make a special point to say something about Karen. And so I think for that sake that being a younger sister of twins maybe wasn't so great for her. Yeah, not so great.
Judy, and I haven't noted it either, but you did not mention your maiden name.
My maiden name
at that time?
My maiden name was Conmacher. My dad, Ray Conmacher, actually lived in Marshall. Well, actually, in the Allright area, but I mean, he grew up in Marshall and went to Marshall High School. And my mother, she was actually born more toward the West Union area. So she went to high school in Marshall sometimes. And when I say sometimes, she went, I think, for a couple of years, and then she went to Hudsonville for a couple of years. Okay, so and when she graduated, she went to Eastern Illinois University, or I guess it was a college then, Eastern Illinois for 2 years, and then she moved to Chicago. She had two brothers in Chicago, and she actually went to nurses training, but I think I'm thinking that probably at that time things were not so good in Chicago, and surprisingly the hospital shut down. So she came back to Marshall, and then she met Dad, and they got married, and that was the family. They lived in Marshall, as I said, when we were born. Then I think Dad worked with the WPA at the time.
Okay.
And then we moved to Paris. I'm not sure why we moved to Paris when we were still young. And but we moved back to Marshall in time for Linda and me to go to school, to start school. And we were lucky because if we'd stayed in Paris, we couldn't have started school at 5 years old. So we got to start school, which was very good. We always enjoyed school. We worked hard in school, and we were actually fairly good students because we did work hard and we enjoyed it. But
you mentioned earlier North School, and you're talking about the old North Side that was
the old
on
North
Sixth
School.
Street.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Who was some of your teachers at that time?
Well,
do you recall?
Yes, I do. Mrs. Phoenix, who actually later became Mrs. Cork. I think she married later, and Mrs. Connerton, and let's see, Mrs. Klein, Mrs. Hutchinson, Mrs. Irwin, and Mrs. Bennett. All good teachers. I think we had really a good education with those teachers.
I went the first 4 years of school to the old North Side tape, and they were all the same.
No kidding.
I had Mrs. Venus for the first grade, Connerton for second, Klein for third, and Mrs. Hutchison for fourth. So they didn't change a lot.
No, they didn't change a lot. No. I enjoyed them all. As I said, I liked school. We had fun in school, I'll have to say. And I'm glad we did, because children who don't enjoy school, I think it's hard. It's hard on them. I didn't say anything about my dad, about what he did after graduation. He went to college for a couple of years in Indiana. I'm trying to think of the name of the school. It's escaping me right now. But then he laid out. It was years. Money was kind of scarce, and then he went back and he finished up school in Boone, North Carolina, and he was training to be I think a phys ed teacher. I mean, in physical education, but actually he never taught at all. Never taught at all. No. When we moved back to Marshall, when Linda and I started school, he actually bought a grocery store. And when we moved back, we actually, that was on North 2nd Street, and at that time we moved in with my Aunt Bertha Conmacher, who lived at 302 North 2nd Street. And then we were there in a couple, I think maybe no more than 2 years, maybe we were there. But then my dad and Mom bought a house on North 2nd Street, 211 North 2nd Street, and that's actually where we grew up, and Mother and Dad lived the rest of their lives at 211 North 2nd Street.
That grocery store, did you work at that store anytime?
No, we didn't work we were pretty young. We didn't work at the grocery store. The thing that I can remember about that grocery store was the fact that Dad bought Linda and me Schwinn bicycles, and I don't know who he bought them from, but they were at the grocery store, and he called us down, and he had those 2 Schwinn bicycles for us. And now they were too big for us to even sit on the seat, but we rode them home, and we had great fun on those bicycles.
Were they twin bicycles also?
Yeah, they were twin. They were twin blue Schwinn bicycles. Right.
That's neat.
Right. So, yeah, and of course Karen had her little tricycle, so she couldn't have a bicycle at that time. She was too small. We were, as I said, we couldn't hit the seat at that time anyway. So, but we learned quickly. Actually, we learned on a friend's bicycle, on a boy's bicycle. And Dan Davidson was one of our friends' mother, knew his mother, and I don't know why, but he'd let us ride his bicycle, and when we had to stop, we'd just fall over on the ground. So we were kind of hard on his bicycle, but by the time we had our bicycles, we knew how to ride anyway.
A few skinned knees, though, later.
Exactly, right. But that was fun. Yeah, we rode every place. And that gave us good strength in our legs, because I know when we ran, we were pretty good runners. But that was fun. That was fun. But,
did your dad run the store individually, or did he have several people working for him?
He had a couple of people working for him. He did have it. He didn't own it very long. He sold it, and He worked at the Dana plant. When I say the Dana plant, Dana, Indiana. I think it was a chemical plant where they stored chemicals. Newport Chemical Plant. Right. And he worked there for a couple of years, and then he was one of the original workers at Formalite plant here in Marshall, Illinois. And then, of course, if you're familiar with that, Formalite then actually became TRW, and so Dad worked at TRW for the rest of his life. Dad died at the age of 62. He had cancer, and lung cancer. And Dad did smoke. I don't know if that was the problem, but he did smoke, and so that was hard on our family when Dad died. We loved him very much.
When he worked at Formalite, was that when it had really kind of just started and was becoming a part of Marshall? Very early?
Yes, I think he was one of the first workers there. Right. Yes, he was on the ground floor there. Right. But, I can't remember who else. I'm sure there's others that he worked with in town or maybe still living, but I don't remember. I don't remember who else was working there at the time. But it was nice because he was back in Marshall and he didn't have to drive all the way to Dana, Indiana. Right. Although he did share rides with people. They took turns. People around the community did also work there, and they would take turns driving.
I interviewed Rhett Smitley, and of course she was an early worker at Formalite.
Oh, she was?
And
I did not know that.
Her entire life at TRW.
Yes, she did. You're right.
And her husband also.
Right.
And she had some interesting stories to tell.
I'm sure she did. I'm sure she did. Right. But right now, my son works at TRW. So
really,
Tim works at TRW. So two people in my family worked at TRW. When Linda and I lived in Paris, I remember the house we lived in. In fact, it's still standing, and it was on the way to Twin Lakes, and not too far from Twin Lakes. And I think that probably my folks rented that house, but I remember early on that it was a two-story house, and the second story, my folks didn't have furniture in the second story. So we had our paper dolls up there, and we had great fun playing with our paper dolls. We were more of a paper doll. We played with paper dolls, but not with real dolls. I can remember having one real doll, and we must have had it early in our childhood because when I remember it, its hair was all stray, and it was awful looking. We just never played. We must have wrecked it when we first got it, but we were paper doll people.
Did you keep any of those by any chance?
We don't have any of our paper dolls left.
I understand some can be collectible.
I'm sure they would be. We had names names for all of them, and we did everything with our paper dolls.
Excuse me.
I'm trying to think of what Karen did when she was small. She laughed. She said she always tagged along with us, but she didn't really. But she loved cowboys and Indians, and she loved comic books, and she had lots of comic books. And I remember when she moved away, she said she was hoping Mother kept her comic books. Well, Mother didn't keep things. Mother didn't keep any of her comic books, and she said they probably would have been treasures. I probably could have had a lot of money from those old comic books. Exactly right. But one of my favorite pictures of Karen when she was little was with a cowboy hat and her gun holster. She just loved that. In one picture, I know she was feeding a rabbit, but that was cute. She was fun.
Did you have a pet when you were a youngster?
No, not really. In fact, I think I was afraid of dogs and cats. When we lived in Paris, we were very young, but we had a sandbox in the backyard, and stray cats, seemed to like that sandbox, and they were ugly looking, so it scared us. No, we didn't. We had no pets at all. And in fact, not until my son Tim, when he was living by himself and he had a dog, and I said I was babysitting for his dog because I would keep him sometime, and he was a golden retriever, beautiful, and I loved him. So I got to learn liking dogs, but cats are still, although now my daughter, she loves cats, and she even had a cat, I think, when she was in college, and then her husband loves cats. So problem is, my son Tim, he's allergic to cats, so that doesn't work out too well for visiting, but I do enjoy dogs, and I feel more comfortable around them. You know, you just, after you've been around them, you kind of understand them. But if you've never been around them, you
that golden retriever then really made you a convert of dog lovers.
Absolutely.
That's great.
It certainly did. It certainly did. I'm trying to think of what we might have done during growing up years. I know we went to the public library a lot. Mother always took us to the public library, and I say we because Linda and I always went, and then Karen, when she grew up, she'd go, and we loved the Nancy Drew stories, all the mysteries. We loved those, and that was fun. So reading was a, I guess you'd call it a hobby at that time, and still is.
Where was the library at that time?
The library was on Archer Avenue, but it was in the second story above, I'm trying to think of,
Hall.
Yes, above City Hall, right, yes.
That's what I remember too.
Exactly, right. And of course, and the stairs were kind of steep going up there too, to the library, but we loved the library. That was fun. It made readers out of us for sure, and that was Mother's idea. She wanted us to like reading because she did also. And so the three of us are good readers, I would say. Although I don't know, at this stage in my life, I don't read as much. I'm not as interested in. I like real life things, I guess, more than not real life stories. I still read a lot, but not like I used to. I just try to steal time to read.
Good.
Not do things I really should be doing. That. Now in high school, as I said, Mother had insisted in junior high that we have separate classes, although in high school, Linda and I both kind of went on a business type of curriculum. So we had some classes together, but not all classes together. So again, that was fun, and tried not to dress alike. I wouldn't say that we never did, but because again, Mother was making clothes for us, which was great. Of course, when she made clothes for us, it was easier to make two of the same thing than to try to make two different things. So she always made the same thing for us. And when we were living, as I said, at 211 North 2nd Street, and we would walk to church, to the Congregational Church at that time when we were in Marshall, and enjoyed singing in the choir at that Congregational Church. I remember particularly we would sing in the Christmas programs, midnight services, because I think at one time Congregational Church probably was the only church that was having the midnight services, and I know that we always carried candles. Well, they finally stopped carrying candles. The children did, because my sister Karen, when she was small, she was holding a candle. Of course, it was late, and she just was about to go to sleep, and she was going down into the candle. I think the preacher saw her and ran down, and you know, nothing bad happened, but that was the end of the candle burning.
Wasn't I'm trying to think. Was it Carl Holler?
Carl Holler, yes.
Involved in the music program?
He was very much involved, exactly.
I thought so.
Right, and yes, he of course was a teacher in high school, taught history, and even though he just had one arm, yeah, he played the organ, and he was he was our musician. Very interesting man, very interesting man, but now as far as chores, we had to help clean the house, you know, for Mother. Not that we like that very well. You know, no kids like chores. You know, and we took music lessons, some piano lessons, and that was kind of a chore too. I'm going to put that under chores. Oh my gosh.
Who did you take those lessons from?
We took lessons from Marie Taylor, and she lived on South 5th Street, and I believe that her grandmother, I think it was her grandmother that lived with her, but anyway, she was a very nice lady, but Linda and I weren't too good on, you know, practicing.
Surely not.
Not too good on practicing. And I'll have to tell one event that finally kind of was the end of our practicing and probably our playing piano. There was a D. Malay group, and I think in Terre Haute, and is that maybe that's a young men's group?
Yeah.
And for some reason, she decided that we should play a duet for this D. Malay group. We had played duets before, and we were okay with that.
You and your sister?
Yes, my sister and I. And anyway, somehow we got on the wrong. We didn't come in at the right time, and it was a disaster. I don't remember. All I remember is we will never ever ever do this again. And I don't think we did. I think that was it. I don't know how Miss Taylor felt about it, but I'm sure she was very embarrassed. And I felt bad because I'm sure we embarrassed her. But you know, once you when you're playing a duet and you get off, it's kind of hard to get back unless you stop. And I don't think that we stopped. And I may be wrong, but maybe we stopped and started again. But I know that we got going wrong.
My teacher used to always have us number the measures.
Oh, really? Now that
so if you got off, you could say number 52, and so that's the way to get back.
Well, she didn't give us that. She didn't try to give us that little hint. So,
that's funny.
Oh my gosh! No, we didn't have that little hint at all. I think I know that during grade school, of course, we had a movie theater here.
Oh yes.
And Mother and Dad let us walk out to town to the movie theater. Linda and I, and later we took Karen with us, and of course we loved the cowboy shows. And I suspect that's how Karen really started loving cowboy literature.
It was the Old Strand Theater.
Right, the Old Strand Theater.
She must have been a big fan then of the serials they had, because there was an episode that we only left you up in the air on Saturday afternoons.
Yes, and you'd have to go
back
again.
Next weekend.
Absolutely, right, yeah. We love that.
Remember those.
We love that. Now, Karen would tell us, and she's told this several times, but I don't remember. She said, I probably ruined your movie going, because she said the boys would want to sit with you and Mother and Dad made you take me, but I don't remember that at all. So, you know, sometimes our memories are not the same. I don't remember that at all. But she's told us that anyway. And of course I think that when we were young, 4-H was a big thing, and of course we were in 4-H. Linda and I don't know that Karen ever was in 4-H, but I think that Mother and Dad had to so many cakes, because it was only a summertime for 4-H at that time, not yearly 4-H, so you did it all during summertime. So your projects, you had to make, if you were in a cooking project or sewing project, you had to do it in the summer. And so, and for cooking, you had to make a lot of, if you were in a taking cakes, you had to make cakes, pies. We never did pies. We weren't good at pies, but cookies, that type of thing. So we were in 4-H several years.
So did your 4-H program take you into care of animals at all, or was it
not
just
really? No.
More
it was
domestic?
just right. Kind of a home economics 4-H.
Okay.
Exactly. Right. When I was in high school, of course, I had a good time. Linda had a good time. I started dating Judy McConchie, who in high school, and we were high school sweethearts. And after I graduated from the University of Illinois, we got married in 1961. Linda and I both went to the University of Illinois, and we loved it. Although we came from a small school, University of Illinois living was great. Living in a dorm. Actually, it was run by YWCA, McKinley Hall.
Okay.
It has been turned over to the university and its university offices, but it was right there on Wright Street, right across from all the college.
I'm not familiar with the U of I. What did you major in?
I majored in teaching, business teaching.
Okay.
Business teaching. And since two of us were going at the same time, we were lucky enough to get some scholarships, but we worked on a work program, half a day on the work program. So that helped. And Mother and Dad helped as much as they could. And because we did that, actually we had to take one summer class to get through in 4 years, but we did get through in 4 years. And it was a good time, even though working half times, kind of you had to burn the midnight oil to get through your classes. But
was your sister majoring in the same?
She was majoring in the same thing.
Did you end up in the same classes there?
Again, we did not, because even though we both worked on the work program, I worked in the afternoon and she worked in the morning. So we didn't. In the end, we had to take a couple of classes together, yes, but generally we did not take classes together. So we met a lot of different people, and that was fun. Okay. And so we worked hard, and we did well at the university.
And what year did you graduate?
Graduated in 1961 from the university. And
that's when you got married then, too.
I got married in the fall, right. I was going to say we were fortunate. We were on the plaque, the special plaque for graduates who do well at college. So that was good, and also got top 10 in our business college. So that was very special. That was a surprise, I'll have to say. But bronze tablet, the tablet was kind of knew that maybe that would get on that, because from year to year you kind of knew where you stood at the universities, because you've got university honors.
Honor.
Yeah, so that was a real plus. And the reason I have to mention that, because my Aunt Ann Conmacher, I think a lot of people knew her as Goldie Ann, but she dropped the Goldie. She went by Ann, and she had taught a lot of my aunts, both sides of my family taught schools. But anyway, she worked in Washington, D.C. She was a historian, and she wrote histories of a lot of the different departments, I think probably service departments, and then she lived in Detroit, and then she lived in Indianapolis. And so she said, I just have to come over and see your names on the bronze tablet. So
there they are.
So no, unfortunately, she went on a Saturday afternoon, and the library had closed, and she found someone, and she was so angry because they wouldn't open it up for her. So, bless her heart, and Anne was special, but she was upset because that was the reason she wanted to be there, right? So,
I love it.
But that's what happened there. But anyway. After college, as you said, I got married. Dale and I, to my sweetheart. Dale had actually started at university, but his dad was a farmer, and his dad wanted him to go into agriculture, and that wasn't really the area that he wanted to spend his life in, agriculture. So he didn't go back to school the second year. He and a friend, Bill Weiser, went to Cleveland, Ohio, and lived with an aunt of Bill's, and worked there, and then for a couple of years, and then he came back and worked, I think, selling feed. He said, I'm not a salesperson. He said, I'd say, you don't want to buy any feed, do you? And that's how he explained how he was such a great salesman. Anyway, we decided to get married, and he decided to go back to school. So he went to Indiana State, and he went in industrial education. And in fact, he went straight through 5 years. He got his master's 5 years. And during that time, our first daughter was born, Carissa Lynn was born. And after, or during, I think it was his probably senior year and his graduate year, he was working with Dr. Hale at the university, and working in printing, and he really got interested in that. And I don't know how he got in touch with two ladies that owned a company they originally called Copycats, but they were then changed their name to Impressions, and they had a little shop on Wabash Avenue. And so Dale decided that he wanted to get into printing, and he wanted to buy that shop. So with a loan from his dad, we went into the printing business. Oh my.
Do you recall about what year that was?
Let's see, 1967 to 1983. I'm thinking it's 67, 15. Yeah, 15 and a half years. We owned it in 15 and a half years. And so, anyway, that was a very interesting time, working 7 days a week, pretty much. and by that time, too, we'd had Tim. Tim was born in 1968, and then Amy in 1970. So we were busy with a family and the print shop. And also, during some of those years, Dale was asked to teach some part-time work at the university, so he would teach some night classes. So it was a very busy time, very with comings and goings, with keeping up with kids and everything. But
Judy, you were involved in the business also, weren't you?
Oh yes, I was involved. Yes, I kept the books for the business. So, and early on when he first bought it, As I said, I was pregnant in 1970 with Amy, and I was actually doing some part-time, well, not part-time teaching, actually substitute teaching too, here in the business department. One of the gals, Mrs. Meehan, son was diagnosed with cancer, and so I had taken over her classes, and I remember they wanted me to finish out the year, but unfortunately, in 1970, in this early spring, Dad was diagnosed with cancer, and we just knew that he wasn't going to get well. And I told him at school I hated it, but I said I just can't finish out for you. I just have to be there for my mother and my dad. So Dad died in 1970, but anyway, it was a new baby was a godsend for Mother, because we had the new baby and she could come over, and with Dad's passing, it gave her somebody to look after. Right, and so it was a good time, busy time, but always a good time.
You mentioned doing the bookkeeping or the record keeping for the business. Did you get into anything in the way of the layouts and the color and how something should be appearing on the page? Was that all Dale's?
That was Dale's bailiwick, yes, and he enjoyed that. He was very good at it. He was it was strictly bookwork that I did, right? Strictly bookwork, but I did get involved in typing and other things like that, but not layouts, not that type of thing. Yes. But,
were you able to do some of that work from home, or was it all in the office in Terre Haute?
In the office. Now, early on, I did do some at home. When I said I was doing some sub work, but then also there was one gal that was doing all the typing, and Dale would bring the typing, and I would do all the proofreading at night time. So that was busy. It was easier when I went over there and could actually do it in the office. So
well, that could be tough.
So it was a busy time. I might mention that my sister, when I got married, my sister Linda, she took a job in California, so she moved away. And of course, Karen was still in school. She went to U of I also, and she was a French major in U of I.
Wow.
But after she graduated, she started working for Pan American. She had taken some instructions in Florida, and so she flew with Pan American for several years.
Really?
Yeah. And my sister Linda out in California worked for an accounting firm, and then she got married, and she and her husband eventually moved to New Jersey, from California to New Jersey.
One side of the country to the other.
Exactly. And Karen, when she was working with airlines, she lived in several cities. She lived in Chicago, and she lived in California, in several cities there. And so she decided that it was too. She just didn't care for flying anymore. I'll just put it that way. And so she ended up actually working at UCLA as an assistant with physicians, and so we were all spread out. I was in Illinois, and Linda was in New Jersey, and Karen's in California, and that's the way it still is today.
Well, that makes a good reason to travel, then, doesn't it?
And I do travel. I travel often, go east. I always have been going for several years to the West Coast during the winter time, and then I go to the East Coast when my sisters and I take trips together. Right. 1991, '96 was, I said it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. In 1996, my sister Linda and her husband were planning to go to Australia. And Ken, Linda's husband, decided that he didn't really want to go, and he asked Dale, I said, do you think Judy would like to go? And yeah. Dale said, oh yes, I'm sure she'd like to go. So in the
Did he ask you?
He did not.
Oh, okay.
He just
Wow.
knew I'd want to go.
You wanna go?
And
I'm sorry.
he was right. So anyway, that was in January into February in 1996, and we had a great time in Australia. My very first time out of the country, and that's a long way to go for a first time out of the country. And then in the I believe it was June or July of that year, Mother had been having heart problems, and in fact she had already had one heart operation in Indianapolis, and she was having more trouble, and her heart doctor in Terre Haute said that there was nobody in Indianapolis that would do anything for her, but there was probably somebody in Milwaukee, Wisconsin that might help her. So Linda flew back, and Karen was still working, and we went up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin with her, and she did well. She survived that operation and lived several years after. But when I say it was the best of years and worst of years, the best was the vacation and Mother getting well, and the worst was that Dale died in October 22nd of 1996. He had a heart attack. I knew he hadn't been well, or felt well, but he had never gone to a doctor that said, you've got heart problems. But this was a heart attack that he did not survive.
Now, had you sold the business at that time?
We had sold the business. Yes,
Okay,
I'm sorry. We had sold the business. Yes, we just. We sold it in 1983, actually, right. And Dale had gone back to full-time teaching for the university.
That's what I was trying to.
Yeah, he was at it, which was good. And although he decided that maybe I should be doing something too, which I was not so sure that I wanted to do anything. But they said, okay. Well, he and a fellow teacher had talked about starting a business to sell supplies, printing supplies, to the area, because and not paper. There was a paper, Butler Paper Company sold paper, but the other printing supplies came out of Indianapolis or Chicago, and so they kind of started a printing supply business, and the other fellow's wife, Sharon Hellman, it's Jim Hellman and Sharon Hellman. Sharon really was there full time, so I just did part-time work, again, part-time book work for the company.
Was that office in Terre Haute?
It was off. Yeah.
And what was the name of that?
Helco, 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 right?
Okay.
Right, Helco. And then, we had it for several years, but at that time, the printing was changing a lot. I mean, the Xeroxes, that type of printing, I mean, there were just so many changes, and to really operate successfully, they would have had to have done something different. Yeah. So after Dale died, they decided to just sell, and so I think we kind of finished up the following year, 97. But anyway, that was kind of a relief, to tell you the truth. Even during that time, as I said, Dale thought he thought maybe I'd like to go back to teaching, so he suggested that I teach nighttime, which I did with the Mattoon, the college in Mattoon. I took I taught some night classes for Lakeland. Just beginning business classes, so it had been freshman college people, and they had classes in Paris. I taught in Paris, and then in Marshall. I didn't do that too long, actually. It was kind of interesting working with the college, because I remember I was surprised that they let most anyone take classes. They didn't seem to really check their ability so much. I mean, they needed the numbers, which is understandable to get the state monies.
Check in,
right?
Be there.
But I just felt bad, because there was a lot of diversity in abilities in the classes. But, so I decided that probably wasn't for me for any long time anyway. No, Dale was good. He didn't really care, but he just laughed. Says, maybe you'd like. I think he thought I was going to be bored, but I didn't think I was going to be. I was never bored. In fact, sometimes I was so busy, I just said, I don't want to say stop the world. I want to get off here. Ready to get off.
I like that.
Ready to get off. But it was a fun time when the kids were in school. She was a good student. She went to University of Illinois, and she graduated from University of Illinois also, and married a fellow that she met at University of Illinois, and he was a son of a farmer, but they have a big farm operation, and so she lives north in Kirkland, Illinois, about 250 miles north here, and she has a granddaughter, Kelly. They have one daughter, Kelly, who just graduated from high school, and she's going to the University of Illinois. So
University of Illinois.
We've kept them going, right? And Amy and Tim were big in track. They loved track, and I loved track. And in fact, Amy got second in 100-yard dash at Eastern State, so she did very well. Tim was good in track too, and they both went to college at Indiana State. And that time it was good because Dale was teaching there, and therefore he had a little help with tuition there.
That's a big help.
Okay, and Amy was my. I always laughed. I said, Chris was my student. Amy was my socialite, and Tim was my sportsman.
It's good to have that three departments.
Exactly right. And so Amy joined a sorority when she was in college, and she got to be their queen. They still had queens at Indiana State. She was in her senior year. She was their homecoming queen, and Tim actually went into the industrial education department also over there. They didn't call it that. I still call it that. That's an old term. It's more technology. Technology based.
You'd think what that's called now, but yeah.
And as I said, he's working at TRW as an engineer. I mean, that's
great.
So doing very well. Amy met her husband at Indiana State, and they live in northern Indiana. Yeah. LaPorte, Indiana, where he grew up. And so I always hoped they would move closer here, but they didn't. They have two children. They have a son 16 and a daughter 14, and the son is in every sport you can think of.
Wow.
He's like Tim. He's good, very good, and they're both very good students. They're both which I'm very happy, because if kids are unhappy in school, it just makes it very hard, very hard. So
Judy, you mentioned your first big experience in travel was going to Australia. But I think you've done a little traveling since then.
I have done a lot of traveling since then. I probably, now I'm talking to a traveler here too, but I think probably at least 50 countries I've been able to travel to, mostly with both of my sisters, although the Australia trip did not include Karen. Maybe I mentioned that. She was working at the time, so I was too, but just part-time, and she couldn't take the time off. But I've done a lot of traveling. I love traveling. I think I'll travel as long as I'm able.
Good.
And speaking of traveling, as I said, Dad died young, and Mother died in 2002. She had heart problems, as I said, and that she did have the second heart operation in Wisconsin, but she did very well for many years, and then she started having major problems, and she's always said, well, if I have problems, I'm not going to try to come in on my family. I'm going to go to the nursing home. So she did go to the nursing home, and she worked so hard to get home, and she finally did. She said, what can I do? I said, Mom, you just have to, really, you have to walk. You have to, get strong. And she did, but then she wasn't at home too long, and she had a major problem. And so that she died, as I said, in 2002. But prior to that, when she was feeling good, we would travel together. All of us would travel together. My sisters, 3 sisters, and Mother. And we went to Washington, D.C. We went to Nashville, Tennessee. We went to Williamsburg. We did a lot of traveling until she just felt like she couldn't do it anymore.
What was your favorite place to visit outside of the United States?
Oh gosh, I get asked that a lot, and I don't know. I don't know, because every place has its own special. In fact, we've been fortunate enough, or I have, all my sisters and I have been fortunate enough that some places we've been visited more than once. And I remember, especially the second time in France, we went to France, and as I said prior, Karen was a French major, so she
that would help.
She planned a visit in Paris, and we were going to join a group, which we did, but we were going to fly to Paris first, and she planned everything we were going to do, everything we were going to see. And then we joined a group, and the group we joined was going to Normandy and so we had a great time in Paris. She was great. We rode the underground. Of course, she spoke French with the people, and we walked all over Paris. We were great walkers, and we love museums. We love anything, churches. I think we saw every church. The churches. It seems like the churches outside of the United States, of course, a lot of them are open, and they're just magnificent. They're absolutely magnificent.
Well, to have that ready built-in travel guide,
exactly,
and that could speak the local language,
exactly,
marvelous.
yes. And she researched when things were going to be open, so that was wonderful.
Wow.
And then we had a great guide in the beaches of Normandy, and just took your breath away. It really did. It was heartwarming. I'm mentioning that because I can still remember the last night that we left, and we saw the Eiffel Tower lit up, and it just we had just a wonderful time.
Did you by any chance take a night cruise on the river?
Did not take a night cruise. No, we didn't take a cruise on the river, but China was interesting, and India and Turkey and.
Is there a place
England.
that you kind of got targeted out there that I want to visit that one next or soon?
Well, I never did really get to Switzerland, and I know it's pretty, although I've been to Austria, a lot of places around it, which I'm sure look a lot the same, but I'm still kind of thinking about going to Switzerland, right.
Are you going to take skis with you?
No, I don't ski. Don't ski. No. Now, Karen said she's done everything she thinks she really wants to do as far as in foreign travel. Although she said if we go someplace, she'll want to go. None of us want to be left out. And of course, Linda still wants to go to Egypt, and we're a little skeptical about going to Egypt at this particular time.
We've been there, but I don't know if I'd really care to go back today.
So we'll be doing something. That's what we look forward to.
Judy, we've all got so many conveniences and things modern around us. But is there something you can say, gosh, I just couldn't live without that? Or, boy, that really changed my life by having that convenience?
Probably my riding mower, because I still mow my yard. And I don't think my mower was out of commission, and I tried to mow it by hand. And I thought, there's no way I can do this. I cannot do this. I've got to have my mower. So.
Kind of along that same line, is there a particular event or political situation or a person that you really feel, boy, that changed my life in their being involved in my life, or that particular event just changed the way I had an outlook?
I'll have to think on that a minute, but I will have to say that in high school, of course, being in the commercial or the business area of it, Mrs. Bush was very influential, and she was a shorthand teacher, and I taught for a couple of years in high school. I guess I didn't mention that, but I taught for a couple of years while Dale was going to school. I worked, after we got married, he went through school, and I worked in Anaconda Aluminum in the accounting section, and also taught school. Taught a couple of years, and then went to work with Impressions Incorporated, our business. So.
Okay, if you were traveling, let's say when you go to Switzerland, and you meet someone over there, and they said, Marshall, where's that, or what's that? What would you tell them about Marshall and why it might be a good place to visit sometime?
I've always loved Marshall. I can't think of a better place to live, because I know people, they're friendly, they would do anything for you. It's a small enough town that when you want to go grocery shop, if you want to do most anything, you can do it in a half an hour. You don't have to spend an hour going to some other town grocery shopping. And it's just a neat place. They have things going on, school things going on. You can go to concerts, you can go to ball games. I love ball games. My kids, Tim, my son, played football, and he did very well in football, and I still go to the football games, at least the home games. So I enjoy that. So it's just I wasn't gone. I was only gone from Marshall, actually, during my school years at University of Illinois in Champaign, But also when I first got married, we lived in Terre Haute, Indiana, so in Terre Haute for a little while. But, you know, Marshall's just my home. I just have a soft spot in my heart for Marshall, and I think that it bodes well for Marshall when a lot of people who've left Marshall, have come back, are spending their retirement years in Marshall. So, you know, it has something special for it, going for it.
Are there things that maybe you've seen from your early experience in Marshall to today that have changed, that are, I know there's some good and bad, always changes, but are there some changes that are really significant, you think?
Well, of course, the business climate, the downtown area, it's wonderful that they've kept it up. I mean, that the buildings still look nice physically, but the business area is just not so much a business area. The new Walmart outside of town, some of the fast food eating places are outside of the major area of Marshall, but still close. And of course the good change is the Marshall Library, because I'll have to say something about my husband. He was president of the library board, and he was very instrumental in changing the library, remodeling it, making it a fantastic library for a small town. And I think the library is a hub. When you go in the library, people are working on maybe puzzles, they're reading magazines, they're reading books, they're working on computers. It just has a lot going for it.
I have noticed people visiting that we have had, maybe as relatives or something, visiting Marshall, comment usually on several things. Number one is the library that we have for such a small town. Right. It's so marvelous. It's clean, it's neat, and right. People seem to take good pride in their property.
I will have to say amen to that. That's exactly right.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. It's been a delight visiting with you.
Well, thank you.
And this is not so much for just someone to look at tomorrow or read tomorrow, but someone in the future. And you may have some relatives that say, gee, I didn't know that about my relative, Judy.
Well, they'll have something to listen to. Or to
well, thanks so much.
You're
welcome. Been a delight, and I really appreciate your taking the time out to do the interview for us.
You're welcome.